You can be self-aware, intelligent, and deeply committed to growth and still feel stuck when it comes to follow through. The reason has far less to do with motivation than most people think, and understanding it changes everything. Hi, and welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life, health, transformational coaches, and spiritual entrepreneurs stepping up to be the change they seek in the world. I'm your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist, on a mission to empower coaches to amplify their voice, monetize their mission, and get visible. If you're ready to start attracting premium clients without chasing algorithms or hunting people down like a banshee on a mission, head on over to thecoachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. It's the first step to building a business where your clients seek you out rather than you having to hunt them down. Today, we are chatting with Karen Canem. Karen is a board certified coach and neurosomatics specialist and the founder of Karen Ann Wellness. She helps individuals and organizations move from chronic stress and reactivity into regulation, internal safety, and self-trust. With a background spanning corporate leadership, functional medicine, yoga, and somatic and parts work, Karen brings a grounded, practical approach to healing that starts with understanding why our patterns make sense and builds change that actually lasts. Welcome to the show, Karen. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
So let me ask you the big question. What's the most significant thing in your opinion as individuals we can do to make an impact on how the world is going?
Do the work on yourself. Stop pointing the fingers outward on what needs to change and what people need to do differently and focus on your own things.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not the easy
Easier
route,
said
but
than
it's
done. Yeah.
it's the most effective and impactful route. So when we talk about, you know, people making changes for themselves and taking personal responsibility for their lives, which is easier said than done in a lot of ways. But what what would be some ideas for how to help people wrap their head around that idea?
Um, I mean, we've all heard probably, especially people listening to this podcast, is you cannot control other people. You can only control yourself.
Mhm.
Um, Keeping that in mind, I feel like is helpful, but there needs to be a deeper why of They're usually, it's like some type of breaking point of like, I am really stressed. I have like a chronic condition now. My relationship is falling apart. I have money issues, big things like that of where people are like, enough is enough, and this cannot go on like this. Um, Now, if there isn't something big like that, then a lot of people now are getting more aware of just like brain health in general and like what could possibly happen in the future if we don't work on our brain health, and that there is so much now, unfortunately, that is just really stressful for humans that the good news is it's become people are becoming more aware that it's as important as like taking care of your body and doing the exercising. It's the same thing for the brain. And so really finding that intrinsic why is going to be really important to do this type of work.
You talk about motivation not being enough, that it has to do with our capacity for change. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at motivation, a lot of that is pushing. We're pushing through. We're pretending, we're tricking our brain into doing certain things, and
Mhm.
a lot of times, that's just creating more disruption in our system. We're not necessarily aligned to um, the things that we want to be doing because we're not paying attention to ourselves. And so I don't particularly like to use the word slowing down, but I'll use it in this instance of just like taking the time to really get into our body is really important in terms of alignment and making those choices that are aligned with the person that you ideally are.
And how do you feel about recognizing who you are? So I think sometimes we go through life and we're just going through life, pushing, pushing, pushing. We have these goals and we don't take the time to decide, who we want to show up as.
Exactly. That's most of like what we're taught to do, especially in like corporations, just societal pressures. That is starting to shift, and that is the work that I do. Um, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
It was just more around the goal that we're taught is to just keep pushing rather than deciding who we want to show up as, making a decision for how we want to be in the world and letting the world conform to us rather than us having to try to push the world to be like we want it.
Yeah, there's lots of things of why we're developed that way, and some of those things that we just mentioned. And it's really uncomfortable to do it in the opposite way because that is not the norm, and that is not, it's going against what most people are doing, right? It can
Mhm.
feel really scary. But what can happen is when we're not paying attention to who we truly are, and we don't even really know what our identity is, we start making these decisions that are not aligned with us, and then that can create again a lot of those like chronic conditions. It can create, to a place of where you're having like, like you finally kind of have a breaking point. So it's Yeah, I hope that answers the question. I mean, I feel like I keep repeating myself, but
Mhm.
it's sorry.
You're good. You're good. It's just a
I don't know why I'm so
conversation. So
spacey today.
there's days when we all show up like that. Um, how do you feel about the whole brain capacity to change thing that's happening now? I remember when I was young, it was like, no, your brain's done. Women 21, men 25. It will never change. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. But we're learning that that is just simply not true. How does that play into what you're doing and how you're helping people?
It's not true at all in terms of the science and the rewiring of the brain. We know that now. It is really difficult for people to do the deep work on themselves. And again, there's several reasons of why that can be. We just didn't do it, right? A lot of it was just like, well, we hide our emotions, we stuff down our emotions, we keep moving along, we push through, we don't talk about things. Um, and now we're seeing this shift of like where that can create a lot of issues in the body, in society. And so yeah, I don't think it's not that it can't happen. It's that it's really difficult for people to do. It's really difficult for, especially as we get older, because now we've been stuck in these patterns for like a very long time. And it feels scarier and scarier for people to kind of explore those patterns and where they started, and how they're showing up now. And it feels easier. It feels easier just to continue to go on with the status quo. And that's why I say like a lot of people will have to have some breaking point where they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to choose to do this work. And then there's some people, probably like a lot of people that listen to this podcast, that are just like that type of person, right? They love the inner work. And they're constantly doing inner work. And we can talk about that too, is like sometimes people that I see that do a lot of inner work, that's a trauma response as well. So there's definitely a part of like when I'm assessing someone that I'm going to do work with, it's like how much work have they already done and what's ultimately are they trying to do? Because there's no end point. We're all on a journey. None of us are perfect. And it's like what sometimes I think it can be more harmful for people that are really in this world of like this wellness and doing the work, that it's just like never enough. And so we need to be cautious of that too.
I think there is a you're identifying a really big trap that I see people fall into, and it's and many people will deny this, but it is a victim mentality trap where they recognize that they've had trauma and they're trying to work through the trauma, but they get stuck in the working through. They never actually get to a place of, okay, so this is what healing looks like. You've arrived and now your journey continues on. What are you going to do with this now that you're not stuck in that trauma? But if you're trying to DIY it, it's really easy to get stuck in the healing mode and never feel healed because you don't know what healed looks like because you've always experienced this trauma. You've been in the pit. It's hard to see that you're outside of the pit because in the beginning it doesn't look any different. And if you don't have somebody that comes alongside you and says, hey, this is our goal, and this is how to get there, and this is how you'll know that you're making progress. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, yeah. So let me just say this, and I think that it will help that the work that I do have an assessment that people take that's kind of like a quiz. I mean, there's lots of assessments that I do, but one is just like it gives them an understanding of where their nervous system is at currently. And then we'll do like a midway check-in point and an end check-in point. I think not I think, the whole purpose of this type of work is to show up in a space that's really like regulated and shows them what that looks like and
Mhm.
gives them not just gives them that felt sense of what that feels like to be like in that space. And that helps them heal. But yeah, a lot of people are they're not going out and living. And I see this more and more isolation, more and more. I saw someone yesterday that looks like she's successful, but was like, I basically chose to cut everyone off. And that's what I had to do in order to be me. And, I'm successful because I'm by myself all the time. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound good. I mean, we have to have connection. Connection is if you're not connected with people, that's something to pay attention to and be like, this isn't living, right? Connection is that's human nature, and we need to be connected. And when we are connected with people, that's a really good indication that like I'm in a good place. So yeah, I mean, there's so much going on in the world, and going back to your very first question of like when I answered of like focus on yourself, I definitely don't mean like shut people out. Being connected with people, and I think I see that a lot now, that is something that a lot of people are really struggling with, and just getting more curious about that and why that's there. And changing that piece of us is healing in itself.
I think moving from being out to confirm your bias to just allowing yourself to be curious about other people without having to make a judgment about them. Just let them be who they want to be and you be who you want to be. And if the conversation goes great, you don't have to be right. They don't have to be right. We can just share. It's like I used to equate it to looking at like a diamond. A diamond has lots of different facets. Doesn't make it any less a diamond if you're looking at one side and I'm looking at a different part. It just means that we have different perspectives. And all perspectives are good perspectives. They allow us to explore other people's thought processes. And who knows, hearing somebody else's thought processes might shift yours a little bit too. We really need to get back into the art of having a conversation with people and being able to talk to people in a way that doesn't trigger us and cause our nervous systems to just start firing up and we live in a period of time where people are so anxious. And I
Hmm.
think it's just because we're constantly being bombarded with fear messages and you've got to pick a side messages and that's not helping any of us. Not helping countries, it's not helping people.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, going back to that first question again, it's like, uh, yeah, there's a part of like this intelligence piece of, that you have to recognize that like the media is there to, it's a business. And psychologically, like, humans are attracted to drama and chaos, and, that's what's created, and know that like this isn't healthy for me. Um, so yeah, and then, this this narrative that's been created of like this right and wrong. It's like, yeah, we've really lost the ability to be open and accepting of people.
They're people. I don't know where you stand on masks, but masks trigger me because it dehumanizes us. It allows people to be rude when they might be kind. Um, and it's everybody. I'm dealing with the medical community right now, and I notice as soon as the masks come on, the people behind the masks tend to be a lot ruder and shorter with other people. And I don't think they do it on purpose. It's just that we're hidden, so nobody can see us. Online, it's the same way. You have interactions with people, and it they're just like they're a lot more tempted to be short rather than to be kind. Kindness doesn't cost anything. You can choose kindness in the world.
Yeah, that's interesting about the mass piece. I live in Florida, so I like don't hardly ever see mass. Um, but yeah, I mean, people obviously are have a much more confidence when they're behind a screen or even behind the mask, right?
Mhm.
But also all of that stuff is creating fear in us. And then we're afraid to then go connect with people in the one-on-one,
Mhm.
because we're all that other stuff is going on. That's what we're being fed all the time. That's what we're seeing all the time. And so it creates like we're not really sure in our system. Then it's like we're not really sure what's going to happen when I'm with this person like face to face.
So let's bring this back to how you help people specifically. And let's talk about who do you help mainly? What what does somebody experience that might say, "Hey Karen, I really need to have a conversation with you."
Well, a lot of people that I help are women and they own businesses. And a lot of things that they're coming to me with is I feel stuck. Um, I am unhappy. Even though like my business may be successful, I don't feel good
Mhm.
internally. I can't get clients. Or there's other people that may not be entrepreneurs, and it's like I, my relationship is blowing up, or I'm so affected by everything that's going on around me or people. Um, those I would say are the main things that they come to me with. A lot of people will come to me and say like it's a communication issue. Like I've worked with corporations or I work with corporations, and that's what it always comes down to of what they say is like it's a communication issue. And then we can dig deeper and really realize like what's going on there. At the surface, yeah, it's a communication issue, but underneath, it's these parts of us that are showing up, and that's why the breakdown's happening.
Mhm. So, do you work with people strictly one-on-one, or do you work in group settings?
So
How
I
does
do
all that
both.
look?
Yeah, I have one-on-ones. I do containers for that. So I offer a 6-month container. This is not like there's no quick fixes in this type of work. There's no hacks. And that's what I found that there's really there's a lot of change that takes place within the third session. People will say to me, like, I'm recognizing things are different, like I'm showing up different, people are behaving differently around me. But it's a process that we go through, and at 6 months is really where I start to see shifts. I will say, that in that, why I call it a container is because it's really important that they feel contained. There's this place for them that they feel this safety and this trust. And it's not just that I'm meeting with them every week. I'm there. They also have access to me where they feel like, if something's happening in the moment, that they don't have to wait for that next session. That's really important as well. And then I do groups too. The groups may look different depending on who the group is for. But those are usually more of a kind of dipping your toe into this type of work and having a better understanding of what it is.
Mhm.
And then I work with corporations, and I'll do a lot of the corporations will move into one-on-one work with people, but it usually starts with workshops. And I'll meet with whoever it is, the owner, L&D department, and we'll talk about like what their goals are and put together workshops for them.
I love that. And I love that you're working not just online, but you work in the real world with real companies that are out there. And I think companies, I know they need this type of work so badly. And the more that women are moving up in the leadership positions, I see more of these types of things being presented for people in companies. We've, for many years, as businesses have developed, they've taken women, they've tried to make them like men, but women have a different cycle and a rhythm to their lives, even if they have no children. We just have different rhythms than men do. We have 28-day cycles, they have 12-hour cycles. So things that men show up for, and this isn't to bash men at all. I love men, but they function in life differently than women function in life, and there's not a lot women can do about it. You just like there are days during the month that you just really just need to stay in bed. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. And you can push through it like a lot of women have been trained to do, or you can come to terms and understand how your body is reacting and what chemicals are going through your body and what message your body is trying to give you, and maybe listening a little more. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Just like,
Well, I mean, men and women, yeah, there's a lot of differences. And that's just not like a biological factor, but it's a societal thing as well. I was just talking to a man earlier today about, that men aren't supposed to cry and how much that suppresses. Um,
worst thing ever.
yeah, and of course I'm a woman, so I probably pay more attention to women. And again, this is not to bash men either, but the society has been built around the man because the man's
Mhm.
built the society. So, um, I definitely see more openness in this type of work coming into these companies. I recently did a workshop with all men who were blue collar workers. Um, that was amazing and very different than if you would have gone into and done a workshop for nurses, for example.
Mhm.
Um, so the cool thing was though about with working with those men is that they were really open to doing the work, and they wanted change. They wanted to feel less stress, not only in their work, but also like in their home lives as well. Um, so it's all about getting the languaging right where you can communicate with them in that way. But yeah, there's so much that can be said here as far as like um, the conditions that are put on us and oppressions and how that has led to so much of where we're at today and why we're at this place of like separation, disconnected, reactivity, isolation. It's because we've been told to do things in a certain way for a long time that just go against who we truly are as a human being, our nature.
Mhm. I, exactly. It's it's so hard to to keep pushing in a direction that you're just like pushing against a cement wall. And people recognize it on a lot of different levels. But they're starting to do something about it now. And having somebody like you that's like, okay, this is the problem, and this is how we can work through it and get around that big wall. Would that be a fair thing to say about what you do?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Um, yeah, you can look at it that way. It's just a different, it really is a different way of being and showing up in life. It's a lot of, it's just feeling safe again. So when we were born as children, we felt safe. When you look at a baby or you look at a small child, you can tell that they feel safe. They may have a reaction when they don't, right? But they
Mhm.
come back into that safety pretty quickly. Um, that gets lost along the way for many reasons. And so that's what this work is all about, is coming back to that safety.
Love that. And I think this may even play into so many people are out there, and this is I'm not even gonna go there. I'll talk to you about it at a different time. But I think it's really needed right now because there are so many people that are looking at, should I go on or should I not? I'll phrase it that way. Um, and we don't want people to be out there thinking, this is just useless. I'm going to give up in the big way. Um, and we're seeing a lot more of it happening in society. Whereas if they could just find somebody, whether it's you or somebody else, who can help them work through how to be in this world in a way that they do feel safe.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
there are ways to do that.
Yeah. And it's different for everyone.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's why too, like when I do these group programs, it's more of a like dipping toe, like overview, like an introduction to the work because everybody is so different. So like you may feel safe watching the news every day, and that may be totally okay for your brain. And for me, that's not going to be good for me at all. That's not going to create safety in my system. And so we don't necessarily talk about those things. We may, right? But the work that we're really doing is embodiment. We're getting out of the head, we're getting into the body, and those answers come to us.
Yeah. I think we all know the answers intuitively, but we've
Mhm.
just been trained to ignore them. And then
Mhm.
our bodies start sending us messages. And then we go to the doctor to try to have that dampened down. We don't want to hear that message. So just, give us something to disguise it. As I point to my shoulder, because I've been having conversations with my shoulder. I I totally understand what it's trying to tell me, and I keep trying to tell it it's okay. This is
Yeah.
not a forever thing. So I know that you offer people a little consult. Might not even be little, it might be big. You offer
Yeah.
people a consult, and they can do that at karenandwellness.com. Is that right?
Yeah. They can book through there, and then my socials are on there as well. So they can book through my LinkedIn and Instagram as well. And so if they're really interested in this work, I can take them through, a brief series of what that really feels like and what that looks like.
Mhm.
So they have a better understanding of like what this type of work is. Yes.
So if they're feeling stuck, frustrated, or quietly self-blaming, what do you think is like the first shift they need to make to move from effort and pressure into real sustainable change?
So this is not necessarily an easy question because part of my work is when I'm coming in, I'm mapping their system. So I'm looking at their body language. I'm listening to their thoughts and other things for me to assess like where they are at in their nervous system. So someone who comes to me and they're like in a very heightened state, what we do in the beginning is going to be very different than someone who comes to me and they're in a shutdown state. Usually, what we would do is most people that are going to come to me, they're very much in their minds, and so we're trying to work to get comfortable, to get into the body, and that really is the first piece of creating safety, but because they'll start to feel like if I say, let's use your shoulder, and I say, okay, let's just focus in on like all these sensations that you're feeling in your shoulder right now. And then we can name like, do you see a color? Is it prickly? Do you feel like coolness? And really getting into it. For someone who has not been in their body, that can be really activating to them. And so we want to make sure that we're carefully titrating into the system and doing this work so that their system can handle it. Otherwise, you can cause more harm and rupture in their system. We always want to create safety, so we'll start with like finding something that feels safe to you, whether that's relational, environmental, or within your body. So we want to have that safety anchor, and that can be different on different days. To be able to, when we start to feel a little bit activated, possibly in the work, that we're able to come back to that anchor and really feel safe. But me as a guide and going back to, yes, the answers are within you. That's the whole truth. But me as your guide and being trained in this, what I'm watching for is where your system is and then guiding you through the work and then bringing you back into safety and then more so that the goal ultimately is to what we touched on earlier is to expand this capacity, right? So a lot of people are coming in and why we're so reactive or why we isolate or we're shutting down is because our capacity has gotten so small of like what we're able to handle. Um, and we want to get back to the place of like, you know, these things aren't as triggering to me anymore. Um, I know when I can somatically feel what these things feel like in my body, then I can catch them quicker than when they come to my mind, and then I can intervene. And that starts to create safety in the body as well.
It just feels so much better overall.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Karen. This has been a great conversation.
Thanks for having me. Great questions.
To learn more about Karen and to explore working with her, please visit karenandwellness.com, and we'll be sure to link to that in the show notes below. Thanks for tuning in with us today to the You World Order Showcase podcast. If you're ready to amplify your voice, monetize your mission, and start attracting premium clients, your next step is simple. Head to thecoachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. Be sure to join us for our next episode as we share what others are doing to raise the global frequency. And remember, change begins with you. You have all the power to change the world. Start today and get visible.